So that was my dress rehearsal. Hi, and welcome to the December 2023 episode or session of Recordando, the virtual poetry reading gathering that happens monthly. And it's been happening since about November 2020. We gather, and the we can be 2 people, or it could be 20 people, depending on the month. It's an ever-tightening, global spanning little cave of people, because it's like entering a cave that's warm. And I hope you brought some tinder and some logs and some marshmallows, because we kind of sit around and chat about poetry and share our work, sometimes centering on a theme, which I lately have come up with the last minute after being poked or nudged by Richard Loringer, reminding me, hey, it's coming up. Do you have a theme for this weekend? And I'm like, hey, you got any ideas? Because it's so casual. And, the way poets' minds work, we can come up with a way to rationalize or justify any poem we want to read, somehow touching in or resonating with the theme at hand. So for this month, because it seems that we've been losing a lot of folks, and I'm just feeling not kind of weaselly sad, but almost like celebratory sad. Like, I'm happy that I've known people, even if they're gone from the physical realm. I'm happy that I was touched by them, and their work continues to work for me, work magic in my life. And I thought, let's honor that. And that way we can reference work by people who've meant a lot to us as elders or antepasadas who have made footprints that we want to follow in, or or somehow your work touches in with that. I want to mention that some very sad news came to me a few days ago, and that's about Joy Harjo, who's the current National Poet Laureate. She lost her daughter, and I'm not sure, I don't know the circumstances, but it was sudden, unexpected, and very traumatic. And so we've got a poet, National Poet Laureate, who's grieving very, very intensely right now. So my heart has been going out in that direction. And the community is showing up for Joy Harjo, and as it should, and in this moment. And so I just want to lift up that situation in case you weren't aware. Also, the world is losing a lot of worthy writers, journalists, poets, and dramatists based in Gaza. So that's something that's been on my mind a lot. Just people losing their literary heroes, if they knew these folks. And that feels very sad to me, to see that cultural disappearance happening. Whoa, okay, that sounded really heavy coming out of my mouth. But what do you want to share? What are you feeling? Jeffrey, you okay? Okay. I see you in your square.
I'm okay. But yes, it's been actually I have a piece that I wrote that will change. It's not moral, although it comes out of my working on my PhD. It's called On Reading Martin Heidegger's Being in Time. And here it is.
Being in Time?
Yeah, that's his main work, Being in Time.
Thank you.
Being is being. Being was being. Being will be being. Bing, 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 bing.
All right.
Hey, nice reading performance.
Unexpectedly existential.
Yes, indeed. It just struck me how many times you can use being and have it make sense.
I know it can be a noun and everything.
I'm gonna read a tiny little bit. It's a, snippet. And this is circa spring 2023. 4 lines. I tried to wipe off my one little leaf on a random little green leaf, like the Nepali snot of a sneezing boy, barely interrupts the young life of joy.
Nice. I think
I witnessed a Nepali mom pulling a leaf, like a bamboo, off of a bamboo grove to wipe her kid's nose. And fancy that, it was a single-use leaf and it was promptly disposed of on the ground. Like, I like that.
Mhm.
And the leaf said, "Leave me alone." Yeah, if we can just read one at a time and then
I
circle
have
back, kind of like round
I'd like to
robin-y.
read
Okay.
something by Ken Hunt.
Oh, can you hold up the book for us again, and so we can see the cover,
Yeah, I'm
please?
just trying to find the piece I was thinking of. Um, so this is I have a couple of them, but this is the one that I have. Aerodrome, Ken Hunt, 1992, 1997. And it kind of I haven't opened this for a long time, so Tammy knew Ken also, and I don't know that you guys would have, but he was a poet in Austin and then eventually elsewhere, and we were lovers for a few years, and he died in 2005, pretty horribly, and so unexpectedly, and that would have put him at about 35 or something like that. Um, he was last, he was a queer motherfucker, and he was last seen after in Chicago after like some kind of big protest, like a big queer trans protest of some sort, arguing vigorously with a couple of Chicago cops on a corner, and then he disappeared and turned up a couple days later in an alley a couple blocks from there with his head bashed in. So, enough said on that one. So, yeah, those cops don't like queer people either much. And yeah, this was hard to even open. I mean, this book is dedicated to me. I'm like, fuck, I forgot that. I read two from this, and I do have a poem that has my grieving for Ken in it, and maybe I could read that too if it doesn't take all too much time. But
Yeah,
I'll
maybe
let you guys.
come back around to you for that. You might need to take a little
Um,
breather between sets there.
yeah. I just thought I'd tell you. That's what I got up to look for. Here's two though. Eclipse. Um, no, wait. You know what? This was one of his favorite. Let's just do these two. Eclipse. The moon was turning blood orange by degrees. I was describing the scene on the phone with a friend in a city where winter comes early. I said, "This is my first eclipse, that some friends are dancing under it." And he said he's never seen one. Of course, another thing he can't see or do in the place of his birth. I could have said, "I know how that is. That was when I was 9, a rabid astronomy buff. I missed the last solar eclipse of the century because of the weather in the town where my folks moved us, which is one of the things that took me a long time to forgive them for. But I didn't, because at the time it had been 6 months since I became the son of a parent singular, and the story wouldn't have been appropriate at all. There's grieving in that poem. Here's another one called April 30th, 1992. Anyone recognize that date? The words Rodney King come to mind.
Oh, yes.
In medias res. That's under the titles April 30th, 1992. In medias res. I am playing, excuse me, guitar in public for the first time in 2 years. There are me and the members of the other two bands who are reading the newspaper, lolling or looking chagrined in the Belltown bar. That's in Seattle, by the way. Overhead, the television has cut to the special reports of centuries of rage breaking loose in the streets. The LAPD was let free today. Now everyone is roaming, camera crews and subjects, glass penetrating the merchandise, the logical end result of America. I'm worried about Wes, the photographer. My eyes turn back to the lyrics, which I always forget, and singing, I wonder if the camera will pan to the plate glass window and my back behind that, and a rock in the foreground with the newscaster saying, I have no moral right to duck. Which is, now as I'm reading that out loud, oddly foreboding, having just told you the story of Ken's end. So I thought I would share those two. Yeah, it's heavy. That's a heavy theme, Tammy. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I happened to be I had gone to Chicago from Texas and to visit some friends, and I had just arrived in the city, and my friend Kendra was going to pick me up, but I talked to Sheila Murty on the phone. We know some of us know Sheila Murty, who also lives there, and Sheila said, I'm on my way to a public memorial, like a celebration of life for Ken Hunt. You should go. I'm going to be there, but I didn't make it because I was with the other friend and we went to some park instead. But, you know, it was just very odd that I happened to be arriving right when that was happening. But yeah, he was really special. He was such a cool friend. I remember one time South by Southwest was starting up and I was living in Austin at the time, and Ken had left Austin and I think he was living in Seattle again. But he'd arrived in Austin for South by Southwest, and I was on a city bus or a shuttle, UT shuttle, heading to campus, and I saw him walk in on Guadalupe, heading towards campus in downtown. And, you know, that's the kind of small town vibe that Austin had for me, and many of us back then in the 90s. So I pulled the window down. I'm like, hey, Ken Hunt. And he was really happy that there was somebody who knew his name. And I said, I'm gonna let's meet later, let's go see Robin Hitchcock or something. And we did meet up. And you know, the special conversations with people you have, and maybe there's only a handful total, but they really mark a special moment in your life with a human being that you kind of assume is going to be around as long as you are. But his memories are going to be around as long as I'm around. So for sure. Thank you for holding that memory with me, Richard, of knowing him.
Yeah. Well, I can read the grief thing later or something else, because I found out yesterday that a local writer, whose name is Yadasa Williams, had died unexpectedly this week, and she was like 30, maybe. And greatly beloved. And it's just one of those sort of like, what moments too, you know? anyway. I might just read something by her instead because it's happier. It's happier than Ken's pieces too. I'm gonna shut up.
Um,
Who wants to
Tammy,
read next? Rob, you have
I wanted to
something?
share. I wanted to share a couple of them. One, I wanted to read. The theme is recordando, poets that have gone on and perhaps whose work has impacted us in some way and inspired. I'm going to read. Well, the first one I'm going to read is a short poem that I think you all will recognize or at least heard of. I am kind of embarrassed to say that I have discovered the poetry of Charles Bukowski late in life, and as um, I wasn't looking for it, it kind of came to me, and it grabbed me with a chokehold, and I began to just get my hands on anything I could. Um, and I think for me, as I started reading about his life and things, his life and my life are complete polar opposites. We couldn't be any more different. Um, However, in some strange kind of way, I understood the pain in the poetry. I understood the loneliness. I understood those themes that keep recurring in that work, in a lot of his work. And so he has late in life impacted me greatly, and I wanted to read something of his and then something of mine. This one is Charles Bukowski. It's called The Bluebird. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke. And the whores and the bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay down. Do you want to mess me up? You want to screw up the works? You want to blow my book sales in Europe? There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too clever. I only let him out at night sometimes when everybody's asleep. I say, I know that you're there, so don't be sad. Then I put him back, but he's singing a little in there. I haven't quite let him die, and we sleep together like that with our secret pact. And it's nice enough to make a man weep, but I don't weep. Do you?
That's a great Bukowski.
Isn't it? Yeah. So that's some of the stuff that I really enjoy of his. And then I wanted to share, at least right now, one of mine. Um, it's called The Fool. A fool appeared one day like a genie, finally freed from a bottle, smudged and hazy and cracked, just like me. He found my address and me in my happiness. Wasting no time, he latched onto me with my joy and glee. With gale force winds, he blew away everything. He played melodies in my mind in the form of memories and trauma, disturbing my sleep, destroying my peace. He would not let go. He would not let me be. He took advantage of my pain and used the meekness of my soul to remind me of my failures until it finally took a toll. Casting me out into loneliness, I became the villain of my story and the assassin of my soul. He made sure that I lost everything, all my wealth and those I loved, talking me out of my victories and sacred blessings from above, convincing me that I'm not worthy to be remembered, considered, or even loved. My question is, who turned him loose? Who set him free to bring me down and ruin me? Who is this fool? Who can he be? I am the fool. The fool is me.
Don't listen to that fool.
No.
Gotta listen to him.
Before I started drinking a little peach whiskey before we came on, And I was thinking of that quote by Frida Kahlo. It says, I tried drowning my sorrows, but the little bastards learn how to swim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no. It's but I think, and it's true for many people, but when I get into my own head, I'm my own worst enemy. And I talk myself out of all kinds of things, and I talk myself out of all kinds of projects and all kinds of relationships and things like that, because how it is. It's one, you think, oh, I have this great idea, and the next minute, nobody's gonna like it. Nobody's gonna. Why even do it? You talk yourself out before you even put pen to paper, or before you put music to lyrics, or whatever the case is. And so I just kind of wanted to document that. But no, I try my best not to listen to those voices.
Are they louder now,
so
Rob, for you? Or
yeah,
they
as
seem
I've gotten
louder
older,
lately?
yeah, as I've gotten older and I've gotten sicker, and I've gotten and just the dynamic of it's changing, family dynamic, and when their lives change, like when your kids' lives change, or the family dynamic changes, you have to change also.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes change isn't easy. And my son, who I've always had access to all my life, is in the Army now. And I don't have access anymore. And it's I'm at his mercy when he calls, when he gets a moment to call. And of course, he's going to call his family, his wife, his children, and I understand that. And I always tell him to call his mother and those things. But that's been a recent change that has been. I mean, I'm happy and I'm so proud of him, but it's a difficult to navigate. And then and just we all, as we get older, struggle with illness, and I've shared that with, I think, you all before. Type 2 diabetes, chronic hypertension, neuropathy, the list goes on and on. And some days I feel great. I mean, some days I can manage it. I can live with it. And then other days I can't. So you have to
managing
muster.
him.
Yeah, you have to muster every fiber in your being of strength and
I
will.
get you there.
Yeah, just to get out of bed. And so but thank God for things like this and outlets to write and share, and that's like medicine for me anyway. And so I'm just glad to be counted among you guys, and thank you for letting
Well,
me share.
you did the work by showing up and having some work
Half the
prepared.
battle,
By
huh?
being.
Well, I do
Yeah.
I do still have a battle with the imposter syndrome, which makes me kind of sad, because I felt like, I've outgrown that monkey or beast or whatever it is, but internally. But I don't feel like I have voices trying to talk me out of things,
Yeah,
because I feel like I've earned it. I've worked my way to,
sure.
I feel like everybody's expression is worthy of being out, being released. And so I encourage you to,
Yeah.
just keep,
Yeah.
when you're having good days, do the work
Mhm.
that makes you happy when you're having the
Absolutely,
good days.
absolutely. And I do find that writing and those things, music, those are the things that make me feel joy and happiness, and in these days especially. I mean, just there's just so much darkness all around, and news and world events and people, and just so much hate and those things, and it's hard sometimes to stay positive and to stay encouraged. And I read something too that I don't know if you all will agree, but for people like us who write and things, it's always, for me anyway, it's best not to focus on what anybody else is doing, because then I won't do anything, because I'll always be like, oh no, that guy can write, or that lady can lay it down. I mean,
Yeah,
so
no, that's a
we
bad idea.
yeah, that's a bad idea. Yeah, as a musician, it's a bad idea too to
Yeah.
you never want to go I mean, it's fun to go see live music, but if you're a musician, first of all, you can't have any fun watching live music because you're watching the. I'm a guitar player, and so I'm watching the guitar player and what he's doing, and
You're watching the damn frets.
yeah, that's what you're watching. You're not enjoying it, and at some point, you have to just kind of kick back and find the joy in it again, and it's been a rough year. It's been a rough year, I think, for many of us, and it's still rough, and we're almost at the end of it, but I mean, I'm again thankful to be able to write and share, and it is a thing that brings me joy, and so as long as I can do it, I'm gonna keep on doing it, and as long as you know somebody likes it, I mean, I'll keep on doing it, and
Yeah, but you need to like it, that
oh
too. I
yeah,
mean,
well, yeah, I wouldn't share it if I didn't think
yeah, but I mean, for me, that's sort of like the thing is that I've realized recently I've been climbing the walls on the ceiling with anxiety the last few
Mhm.
weeks, and then I'm like, you idiot, you haven't been writing, and I haven't been writing for like weeks and weeks.
Yeah,
In fact, much of the fall, I haven't written much. And I was traveling. It doesn't matter why. I have my list of rationales, but
right, right.
it's not even that. It's just like, why haven't you been? Well, you can't answer that, but you can start,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah, for me,
Oh,
it
sure.
smooths everything out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you.
Gets me off the ceiling. Yeah, yeah. Tammy, you're on mute again.
Oh,
On that note, I want to mention that I wrote a poem the other night, and it felt so good to write it. It felt so good to just get it out. And I was late night scrolling. I'm like, oh, let me scroll just a little more and then I'll go to bed. So I scrolled, and there was a really beautiful image of a indigenous man, an elder, seated, and it was a black and white photo. And my sleepy eyes mistook his knees, which were covered with these kind of chaps, but they were like beaded. I mean, really nice coverings that were over his knees as part of his garment. But at first glance, at quick glance with the sleepy eyes, I thought they were children, like the faces of children.
Hmm.
So this is what I wrote based on the photo. Each of his knees was a child, so proud he patted his caps, and the gentle brown fingers encompassed all the DNA beauty, and there was a potency in the tears that pooled in pride and slid down his carved cliffside face, a paternal monument that we tried not to forget despite the new drive-in theater and the blonde maid at the cookhouse cafe. Sometimes we feel cast aside when Shiny shows up, and our dull, wide features bring small audiences who come more for the trauma and drama than for the teachings and laughter.
the trauma and drama.
Yeah, right.
So
Like that.
I don't know the guy in the photo. I was scrolling, but I got pushed in that moment. It was an impulse. It was an impulsive poem that came out, and I slept so well. And the next morning, that glow continued, and I thought, well, look at that. Let me remember this. That writing a poem in the moment when you're feeling it really gives and gives and gives. And I needed to be reminded of that, because lately I've been taking a lot of vitamin D3 and zinc chewable lozenges, because I've had a lot of congestion and I was sick for much of November. And or was it this month? Yeah, from Thanksgiving week until 4 days ago, I've been congested and sick. So it's easy when you're consuming those kinds of medicines to forget the other medicines that are also crucial. And I bicycled today, and oh my God, my body is out of shape because I haven't been biking due to illness. So my muscles were yelling at me for pedaling. So yeah,
Yay.
I don't want What's that?
I was yaying the muscles.
Yaying the muscles. So yeah, I want to engage all the muscles, the poetry writing muscles and the other muscles, because you know that's how I gain, and that's the other kind of medicine that is fruitful for me. Thank you for listening.
Mhm. I like writing late at night, and I think you're right. I think no matter what else I'm doing, I think I sleep better if I've written something, even if it keeps me up till 4 in the morning. You know, otherwise, like I have crazy nightmares when I'm anxious, and they're can go on and on and on, and but I'm not anxious when I'm writing.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Interesting. Well, it makes me wonder if maybe some night you feel like you want us to join you in a writing session, a late, for us it would be late because we're east of you, Richard. But
Might be early because I am up till 3, 4 in the morning.
yeah, that might be something to think about doing.
Yeah, I have a couple things I need to write. I know I'm about to start writing. Isn't that weird? I'm like, have a story at least and a poem that are like pushing to come out, and maybe a couple poems and for sure a story. It's not quite. It doesn't know what it is yet, but how it's not funny how that works. Like it's a vague idea, or in this case, it's sort of like an image, and that's it. But there's a story going to come out of it. And you don't really know what it is, but in the back of your mind, it's sort of making itself, and you're like, oh shit, there you are.
Yeah, I have been thinking a lot about people who solve Rubik's cubes, and I was just imagining like you consciously working it, Richard, while you're awake and you're fully engaged intentionally to compose something. But then when you put it down, that's how our minds work. You put it down and you go sleep, or you're cooking, or you're daydreaming, watching a movie. It's still the Rubik's cube is still working deep inside. It's
Oh yeah.
doing those adjustments for you, and then you wake up and you see, oh wow, it's a little more solved right now than before, because it's like once it gets trained in you, like okay, me and AI language, once it gets trained in you, that cognitive musculature is still working on it. It's still chewing on it.
No, no. I do for a couple of years now I've been doing crossword puzzles all the time. Like starting in the beginning of 2021, I'd been sheltering by myself for over a year, and I was like, or almost a year, and I was like afraid that I was losing my word memory. So I just bought a book of like easy New York Times crossword puzzles, like a book of Mondays. And I got halfway through that and I bought a book of Tuesdays. And I was sort of I've been doing them, I've been doing crossword puzzles. I never did them before. I never did crosswords. And now I do some pretty, it's kind of hard ones, or medium hard ones at least. And I'll like be in late at night. I do them late at night, and then I can't think of anything anymore. And I wake up and I look at the page and I see the words that aren't there yet. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. I'm like, oh, that's specious or whatever. Like, why couldn't I see that? Well, because there's only an I, an O, and an S, but now I know what it is. Yeah. Brains are weird.
Yeah, and magic is magic. Um, I used to be real obsessed in the beginning with Wordle, like doing the daily Wordle puzzle. And some people are, going, you know, devising a formula and trying to make their first word a really good word. And I just go with instinct. I go with what's in my mind today. And a couple of times I've done that. I've solved the puzzle in 2 guesses. And I'm like, that's the angle. That's the angle. Don't go with that kind of scientific formula, blah, blah, blah. Make sure you have 2 vowels and this, that. Like, what's coming up for you? What's rising? What is the world thinking about today? And it's man, I hit on it much better when I approach it that way, and it gives me more joy than that kind of rigidity of like, make sure there's an A and make sure there's two S's, and then like there's no magic in that. That's that's trying to nail the SAT. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have fun with words, and the way I want to do fun with words is through magic. Wow, your lighting changed so dramatic, Robert. You're like, you got an Orson Welles thing going on now.
It's my white hair is what it is. It's
No, it's the
it's
lighting shifted. It got really dark.
no, I was trying to, when you were talking about that, I was showing you a game that I play all the time.
Oh yeah, you showed something.
Word
Yeah.
thing, trying to, I don't know if you can see it, but
Yeah,
it's
the circular, it's like a face of
yeah,
a
the
clock.
circular. I do that and seek a word. And I do that also to try to, I've read, that those are good games to keep your mind alert and those kind of things. Because I mean, it helps. And sometimes, you as you get older too, your memory isn't as sharp as it once was, and you gotta keep it, like a muscle, and you gotta keep it working it, and so, but yeah, but I love games like that too, and so, but it's
Speaking of
work.
Orson Welles, which I kind of got
Uh-oh.
the take I got when I looked at you
Yeah.
for a minute. Is the vibe of Orson Welles, not that you resemble Orson Welles, that's not what,
Yeah, no,
but
I probably resemble it too. Over.
well, my nephew's in a theater class in middle school right now, and I asked him what they're working on, and he said that right now they're talking and learning about sound effects in theater. And so then I got on a thing about radio plays, and just, I wasn't alive, in the 30s or 40s, but I know a little bit about that history, and I think it's fascinating. That's what I shared with my nephew, how I was fascinated with how the sound crew or the technicians, were very adept at coming up with ways to emulate sounds like galloping horses, with coconut
Yeah,
husks, and clomping along.
That's Monty Python, actually. Go ahead.
And how, when you watch old movies like the Shirley Temple movies or the Thin Man, sometimes there's a scene that takes place, at a radio state, radio where they're doing a live theater on the radio. And then it occurred to me, because it was way tucked in the back. It's like, oh, hey, that reminds me, when I was about your age, 7th or 8th grade, I did a presentation on the Orson Welles adaptation of an H.G. Wells sci-fi story. Do y'all remember about that? The story is set, or at least how it was produced by Orson Welles in the I believe it was the 40s in New York City. The play takes place in New Jersey, and it's about the landing of a flying saucer, and the aliens come out, and they're vicious, and they're attacking humans. And it created such a scare during the live broadcast that people started evacuating in a horrible panic, like wrecking their cars and just horrible things. And it was I guess maybe a nationwide broadcast, I don't know, but at least in New York they were really panicking because the story took place in New Jersey. And they had to abort. They're like, okay, hold on, this is just a play, people. This is not an, because it was kind of read like a news story, live news story. And
Famous for that.
yes. And I said, well, and I read a whole book for little kids about the making of that play as a radio play, and the sound. They had to come up with the sound of the UFO opening, and like, who knows what that really would sound like. And they finally settled on putting unscrewing the top of a jar in a toilet bowl, because the resonance was going to be good, and they mic'd it, of course. So I'm like, I love knowing these things. So I shared it with the
But they still do
15-year-old.
sound effects like that, like weird shit you wouldn't think of. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just love that. I said, this is problem solving. This is fascinating. And the 15-year-old was like, wow, you know some crazy things, Tammy. And like I we need to look that up. Maybe watch the movie.
Put
Uh
something in the chat
yeah,
because
okay, let's I'm
people
gonna
still
pause the recording and we can take a bio break. We'll be back in a moment. 5 minutes? How's that? 5 to 7. Is that cool?
all right.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to the December 2023 edition of Recordando. And Jeffrey Polis would like to share a piece. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Now, this isn't mine. I discovered David Lerner, and and uh, and I've been reading his book, A Banquet of a Bouquet of Nails. But this poem is sort of apropos to our theme of uh, and of dead poets, since he is one, and it's about it's called A Place to Sing for the Poets. So I figured that also fit. There was time when I whipped myself towards glory. There was time when I required a stage so wide I could walk across it from ocean to ocean. A time when time was a weapon in my hand, and I almost knew that all clocks would someday bow before our beauty. I'm still faithful to this cry, though it grows fainter as the years march through me. But now that time is not my club, perhaps now as the room I live in grows smaller and smaller as the temperature climbs, I'm so hungry that sometimes I eat myself. Perhaps I can live for a place to sing, a space for my heart to beat in, even break. I'm rich in nerve. Perhaps I can dwell in a closet, a corner, a niche. Maybe bang my drum in the cracks of the street, in an alley, in a dark part of town where only fools walk at night. For though almost no one at all can see me, I can still see almost everything at once. Standing in this bump in the road, so hungry for the turning in my chest, I'm ready to break it open and do it with my hands. Maybe this tiny cave where we're pressed in has air enough to keep going today, keep us going today. Maybe tomorrow too, if we're lucky and strong and wild. Tonight, perhaps I'll learn to live in the inches. Tonight is some tiny bar where the drinks are cheap. I'll skin myself alive and show what's beneath to others as perfectly ruined as I. A place to sing, to shout without losing our voice or selling it to the shiniest bidder. The fine and tortured music we trick from the cracks in our sighs and the holes in our eyes is what we have to crawl and climb to as we spin in the wind of this terrible age. A place to sing, my voice still raw and golden.
That's encouraging. Yeah, I looked him up. At first I went to a fingernail salon type place, a bouquet of nails. But then I found it's on Zeitgeist Press. Previously uncollected poems of David Lerner.
Mhm. That one was tough for me because here's an interesting point. How do you react when what might be a good poet dies who was a very unpleasant person?
Mm.
You know? Yeah. So, and I won't say much about it, but I knew him and he was really nasty to me. So, but Zeitgeist is an old
Connections.
press. Huh?
Connections. There's always connections.
Zeitgeist is an old press that came out of the Cafe Babar readings in San
Right.
Francisco.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, I went and looked up other poets from the Cafe Babar group.
Bet you didn't see my name listed, did you?
I was looking for you,
Yeah,
but
no.
you weren't listed. I
I
figured you must have been there at the time.
actually started it.
Ah,
Yeah,
Yeah, but
different
it
story.
kind of got overtaken by a lot of really big egos at one point, and it sort of ran me out because I don't do well with giant ego people. So that's about the most I'll say. And it's not every name you come across either. But
he had
it's
he had
whatever.
he had another poem where he talked about a friend of his who where they had conversations about committing suicide,
Hmm.
and his friend uh, was one of these very thorough types, and he came up with using nitrous oxide to off himself,
Hmm.
and told David Lerner that,
Hmm.
and then within a week he did it.
His friend.
Friend did, and
Yeah, I wonder who that was.
I don't have that right in front of me,
It
but
doesn't matter. Yeah, it was an interesting and problematic group of writers. But I probably would get in trouble even for saying that, because they kind of get worshipped by a lot of people, which is also something I don't really do well. So now I'm just
Um,
sounding grumpy.
yeah, I mean, that's that kind of thing is bound to happen with folks who've been writing as long as we have. I've bumped
Hmm.
into a lot of people over the years, and some of whom I don't really need to bump into again.
Yeah.
But I don't need to share about that either.
No, I
Unless
shouldn't
I
have
need
said
to save
anything.
you from falling into their trap if they lay traps anymore, these particular folks. But yeah,
Mhm.
I don't try to score
I
points
mean, I have a book on
mentioning these things.
Zeitgeist. One of my books is on Zeitgeist.
So yeah, what I was saying, let me finish, is just that I
Yeah.
wanted to be sure that it's just said that some of us have those knowledges, but we don't, it's not front and center about what we care to share
Hmm.
in spaces like these, or I mean, this is being recorded as well, which is just good to not be reminded of.
I'm aware of that.
But we don't gain, and I think you understand that, Richard. We don't gain by smearing people just because they bumped us wrong one time or 5 times or 9 times
Hmm.
or worse. I know bad things can happen, very bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also sending out soothing vibes to you.
That's okay. Zeitgeist has a lot of interesting books, though. They're put out by a guy named Bruce Isaacson, who's in Las Vegas now. Yeah, one of them was one of my books of flash prose called Sudden Windows. But a particularly good, I edited a particularly good collection for them that was a collected some collected works of a poet who had died also, whose name was Joie Cook. Uh, that was a woman named Joie, Joie, and I recommend. There's actually two versions, oddly, of that collection. Bruce asked me to edit because she had one paperback and she had, I can't even remember, a dozen or more chapbooks over the years. And whereas you could get the paperback collection from Manic Deep Press, the chapbooks were obscure and they contained a great amount of her really great work. And so, like the year that she died, he asked me if I would edit a collection from all the chapbooks. He would get me copies of the work in all the chapbooks, and I would do that. And I read through them all, and I was like, this is going to be really hard because there's so much good work in here. And so we finally settled on, I was like, how about you put out two books? One is is an edited collection, selected poems from the chapbooks or whatever, and the other one, which is just all the poems from all the chapbooks reprinted. And so we did. I don't know, it was crazy of them to do, but you know, we put out 2 editions. One was called yeah, it's Joey. Yep. She is Fighting Love, and that was the selected works. But the other one, the title which I liked the best, well, I made up the title, so of course I liked it, which was Joey in Chaps, which was very much Joey Cook. And you expected to see her in chaps with like a bullwhip or something. And that's a big collection, but it's got so much good work from the era.
All right. You've convinced me. I've got to go look up Zeitgeist. I've looked up Zeitgeist Press and found Joey. So next will be to buy which book again is the best one to buy?
I like the full collection called Joey and Chaps.
Joey and Chaps. All right. That's the one
Yeah.
I'll look for.
You
Anyway.
mentioned manic depressed, and so that reminded me that I picked up this copy, and when I say picked up, I
Juliet
mean,
Torres. Yeah, yeah.
when I say picked up, I picked it up from the piles of books I have all around here. And this one has been carefully archived in a little Ziploc of its own. Yeah, Juliet Torres's collection. And I'm like, oh, it's so good to read her, because reading the poems that I read just yesterday or the day before brings her back to mind. And do you happen to know where she is or how she is, Richard?
I don't. I think she's in Southern California, but I could be mistaken. I ran into her up here like 10 years ago at a reading. And she read, and it was super nice. I think she was back in Southern California, but I bet you know, if she's on Facebook.
Yeah, I could look her up.
I'm doing that right now. Ah,
Yeah, I met her when she was with the Albuquerque poetry scene, and
uh-huh.
yeah, and then she moved to San Francisco and was with Manic Depress, and
Yeah, she doesn't look like she's on Facebook. At this point in time. Anyway.
not a problem. Yeah,
But
it was always great to run into her.
yeah, I met her on Lollapalooza.
Oh yeah.
She was sort of following the tour for a while. I don't think she was on the bus, but I may be mistaken. I always associate her with Jimmy Jazz for some reason, even though I think they were friends or are friends. I don't know if you know Jimmy Jazz.
Only by name. Yeah.
Anyway, we're old and these things happened.
Who has another poem to read? On the buddy?
I feel like I should read something by Yadasa Williams if I haven't monopolized too much.
What's the first name again?
Yodassa, Yodassa.
Oh yeah, that's new to me. That person's new to me.
Yeah, well, she or they, I don't know if she's she or they, and I can't find a like a recent like bio sort of thing online. There was something I found. I know that she was not. I'm pretty sure she's non-binary. It doesn't matter really, but or it does. But yeah, but they were about 30 maybe, or if even, and passed this week, like a few days ago. People called them Yoda. That was a nickname. Yodassa. Yoda. Oh yeah, and they wrote a.
They just passed away this week?
Yes. Yes. They have novel. It's a sort of a novel called The Goddess Twins, fantasy. Um, but maybe I'll just read this one. I wanted to look her up and maybe I have. Maybe I did have something here. I can't figure out. I've got too many tabs open. I apologize. I can't find anything on my machine at this point. So, okay. But here's a Udesso's fiction writer, but did lots of short things. So I'll just read this. The Fire Inside Her. She was born with the sweet water lizards. Her scales were the same as theirs, and they loved her as one of them. But secretly, she felt that there was nothing truly sweet about her. She played the water games with total focus, but never won a single race. She sang the water lullabies with her softest voice, but never hit notes the way the others did. At night, it wasn't the waterfalls or lily pads that filled her dreams, but fire, hot, uncontrollable, licking through the forest, touching and changing everything in its path. She was afraid how excited the dreams made her feel. She was ashamed that she only felt complete because her dreams were filled with fire. So she worked harder on being sweet. She softened all her edges and became like the others, like water. She was flexible, agreeable. She was easy to swallow. She still never won a game, but she now told herself she was happy to be included. The others laughed at her singing, but she laughed too, agreeing that she was funny. She laughed. She played her role as the weakest link and denied the ache. The ache was dangerous. The ache was where all the bad feelings and questions lived. Like, when would she find something that she was made for? When could she stop feeling like her existence was a mistake? Exploring the ache might upend her world. So, even as the ache grew bigger, she ignored its dark call. While the lizards played in their sweet water pond, a foreign agent worked its way into the forest, a hungry and relentlessly aggressive fungi, moving swiftly, suffocating every tree, grass, and bush in a short amount of time. The lizards heard the cry of the birds, felt the fear of the insects, saw the plight of the deer, but were helpless. How can a water lizard save the forest? They cried as their sweet water pond became entangled with algae. Everyone cried, but she did not. She had cried enough tears over her inadequacies over the years, was angry. She was livid with the fungus and algae for destroying her beautiful home. She was mad at the inaction of her family. She was hurt that no one else had been able to save their forest. She closed her eyes and felt all the anger sweeping into the place where the ache had been stockpiled. Like a lit match on dry tinder, she was suddenly full of feelings she couldn't ignore. It was too much, and none of it was sweet. Frustration and doubt and jealousy and uselessness that had stockpiled for ages all volcanoed within her. She felt like it would crush her if she kept it inside 1 minute longer. She opened her mouth and began to scream, and along with her voice came fire. It felt good, so very good to scream, that she kept her eyes closed. She didn't realize the fire she ignited, only the warm release. When she finally opened her eyes, she sputtered, shocked at what she had done. Her lizard family fluttered about, yelling as the fire caught on around them. They were upset at first, until they heard that the fire was fixing the forest. The birds chirped down the message. The fire was working to destroy the fungus. More was needed to the east. Could the fire starter get to work over there? The birds wondered. The sweet water lizards wondered too. They looked at her with a mix of pleading, awe, and fear. How did she make fire? Could she do it again? She stretched out her lizard limbs to look at her scales, but saw they were no longer exactly like everyone else. With the heat that had coursed through her body, they had begun to crack and peel, revealing thicker skin underneath. The old skin itched, begging to be shed. She twisted and felt burnt bones in her back, ones that had lied dormant and languid before. With a violent shake, she shed the skin of her former self. The lizards gasped as they took her in. She was black, shiny, with wings sprouting from her back. She was never a sweetwater lizard. She was a dragon. She pushed off, taking flight toward the east. It felt amazing to glide through air. To not be held back by water as she had all her life was incredible to experience. Dipping low with ease, she found the start of the fungus invasion, blasting her fire at the mother crops. She made a deep arc around the forest against the wind. The two starts of the fire met each other. Now evacuated of animal life, the affected forest burned quickly. She watched from above with a mix of awe and sadness. The life she had before had been shed and left to the flames. She was a dragon now. It was as if the dream she had for years were both a premonition and a warning. She would start the fire, and the fire would start her. Weeks passed. The forest returned back to life, the regrowth fast after the healing fire. The Sweetwater pond went back to normal, and the Sweetwater lizards taking their place of comfort and rest. But there was one missing from their herd. Every night they watched the skies for her and told the tale of the lizard who was never sweet because she held too much fire.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
That's a William. I'll try to call up a site.
So you said she passed away this week?
Yeah, no, I don't know what, don't know why. I really don't.
I really enjoyed that piece.
Yeah. Why something's weird with my internet. Here is okay.
You need to
I
share
will
screen.
Yeah. I'll share screen for a moment. Sorry if that took a while. And yeah, okay. So this is, I think, was her site, yodawill.com, which makes sense. Yodassa Williams. It's a fantasy novel, writer of color. Good. Fun novel is good. A lot of emotion in her work. And oh, here's a picture, just so you can see. So everyone's kind of gobsmacked. You know what I mean? But this happens. I don't know what happened, but I liked Yoda. So just wanted to share because this is kind of presently in my heart in terms of your theme.
Yes, of
And
course.
I'll put the link in the. I'm gonna stop sharing. What a nice person. Human beings
Oh, I'm
are all
sorry
over the
for your
place.
loss. So
Yeah,
sorry.
well, it's our loss. It's like,
It is
the
now that
writing world.
you've shared that piece. I've lost her too now.
Yeah. Yoda. I just wanted to honor.
Sure.
I mean, how many poets have I known, writers have I known who have passed? I could make a long, long list, so, and I think we all could.
Well, I did, or at least I started the list for the image that's part of the event Facebook event page. That type list is a list of those folks, and I've thought of several other names since that list was made. I'm gonna share my screen because we need to see this. Tango Martin Eisen is a father.
Yeah, I saw that. Tango Eisen Martin.
Do you know his partner?
No, I think we've met. I'm certain that we have, but just to say hello a couple times at readings. It's been a while since I've seen him for them.
Yeah, this is very exciting. I'm very happy.
When was this?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. Okay. All right.
The baby's name is Sankara Jolani Eisenmartin.
So it's not all about death.
Nope. This was the perfect thing to show.
Yeah, when a poet gives birth to a child, that's a poem, and that's a sign of hope and perseverance. I'm going to read work by Kel Robertson from A Horse Called Desperation. Selected poems. I'll not read the title poem. I'll read this shorter one. The Passionate Coyote. The passionate coyote rolled in the dust to kill his fleas, but when he arose and shook himself, his eyes fell out and grew into a philosopher poet who wound up in a motel in Albuquerque telling jokes to himself in the cracked mirror. Checkout time is 1 p.m., they shouted and broke down the door, but all they found there was a dead coyote glistening as if it had run for a long way, a long time. Thank you, Kel.
More.
Okay, well, there's the other one I didn't read, A Horse Called Desperation. A Horse Called Desperation. I ride a horse called Desperation, a bony nag, half blind and mangy, fast only because he has to be. He runs in startled leaps and cannot see where he is going. I give my horse the name Desperation because a man must put a name on things. The sunlight touches leaves, rekindles life. Light kills some creatures. Darkness is their hunting time. Mushrooms feed on decay. The worm is equal to the tree, the maggot to the man, and rocks are better than history books. Death as a shrouded figure comes from our imaginings, and the real death is no more than a twig snapped in the wind. The slap of a beaver tail on a mountain lake, the lion's roar, the squeal of a rabbit waiting for my hand to break his neck with a quick blow, a pig's squall before death or castration, the terrible cry of a hawk striking. The Indians who were closer to the earth were closer because it was where they were, and when the white man's whiskey came, they drank it willingly. They'd already scratched marks on rocks or bent a grass blade down to indicate direction. The noble savage wanted those cheap beads, a mirror to see himself in. Powder and paint had already seduced him. He had placed a shell in his lower lip, a ring in his nose to make him suffer pain and be beautiful. Ladies wrapping themselves in corsets had nothing on him for vanity. Tattooing himself with suffering, he walked the jungle searching for something to prove his courage by a lion, maybe, or a man who disagreed. We've made the primitive more sophisticated. Rifles replace clubs. Atomic bombs are reflected in the polished knife blade. The slap of a beaver tail is a blip on a radar screen. This horse, again in cunning, called Desperation, sags against the wall, out of breath, but ready for a burst of speed over the edge of the abyss. Riddles, cones, is that how you say it? Cones, parables, the click and sputter of the pinball machine, a million billion points flash from the grinning lady whose legs painted on glass defy us with the crackling chips of their believability. This horse pot-bellied because he is undernourished and overfed, couldn't leap over the trimmed hedges for kings and queens, but will break them down for the hell of it on a windy night when wind howls and a full moon drives his rider mad. This horse is mine and magic. His eyes are crazy. He falls down and dies, rots and rises again to fall. And this time when he rises, it's like the sudden interest of a man on the verge of suicide who is confronted by the need to plunge himself once more into the soft cavity of a woman's flesh and spin himself on that as if it were the only God left he could believe in. This horse, my horse, called desperation, is the only horse that will take me where I have to go. The coffee is cold. The fire has gone out. The girl I love sleeps in the arms of my accusers. Christ rolled the stone away and went to glory. Nobody will serve me anything. In my arrogant despair, I turn to sing my song to a horse who is too weary to listen, but never too weary to carry me, jerking and screaming through the stark, cold night and the flames.
That's awesome.
Good old Cal. Good old
Yeah, that was
Cal.
awesome. Awesome to hear.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when he was in his last hours, they held the phone up to his ear so I could talk to him because he was in that old, I think he was was he in the shack still? Yeah. Somebody built a chicken coop sized shack for him to live in on their land because he didn't have any other place to live. So he died among poets and among, renegade outland people. Outland, just some real cool people. He was surrounded by good folks in the end, which is what I hope all of us have when it comes down to it.
This morning I read a piece. I know one of the things I subscribe to is the Poetic Outlaws. You familiar with that website?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this wasn't a poet, but being of my age, you young folks may think of this differently, but this is some writing by Henry Miller. Says the wisdom of age constitutes the ability to accept reality, which is the knowledge of certain death, substantial, personal, individual extinction. It no longer seeks to disguise the fundamental cruelty and terror of life because it is too weary for further struggle. It is not the acceptance of destiny so much as the succumbing to it. It's not pessimism, but a joyous acceptance of this. If at 80, you're not a cripple or an invalid, if you have your health, if you still enjoy a good walk, a good meal with all the trimmings, if you can sleep without first taking a pill, if birds and flowers, mountains and sea still inspire you, you are a most fortunate individual. And you should get down on your knees morning and night and thank the good Lord for his saving and keeping power. If you are young in years, but already weary in spirit, already on the way to becoming an automaton, it may do you good to say to your boss under your breath, of course, fuck you, Jack. You don't own me. If you can fall in love again and again, if you can forgive your parents for the crime of bringing you into the world, if you are content to get nowhere, just take each day as it comes. If you can forgive as well as forget, if you can keep from growing sour, surly, bitter, and cynical, man, you've got it half licked. And there's more, but I'll just stop there. It spoke to me.
Is that from something or just him writing in an essay?
It's from something. Yeah, it's
From
his
a book.
1972 chapbook on turning 80.
Okay. I
But
like
yeah,
Henry Miller. I haven't read him in a long time.
Yeah, thank
You
you
ever
for
read him,
sharing that.
Tammy?
No, I just know what I know. The little I know about him is through Anna Eastman.
Mm-hmm. I actually have I think it's his book.
Jonas Mekas.
Yeah, I'm gonna read a prose section from this. He wrote for, was it it was a New York magazine, Village Voice, for decades, or 10, or maybe just 10 years. So this is dated 1961, rendezvous with the FBI. And it starts with a line from a poem by Allen Ginsberg. I dreamed J. Edgar Hoover groped me in a silent hallway of the Capitol. 2 days after the cinema 16 screenings of Guns of the Trees, I received an early morning telephone call. My name is Schwartz from the FBI, said a voice at the other end of the phone. I want to ask you a few questions. Schwartz, a good name, I thought. FBI. I was sort of thrilled. I remembered the novels of Mickey Spillane, Adventure. We agreed to meet on Avenue B. I had always wanted to meet an FBI agent or a detective. I wondered if I'd be able to spot him on the street. Spot him I did. There was no mistake about that. Nobody could have missed him on the Lower East Side, a face right out of a Carol Reed movie with black hat and raincoat. You don't have to talk to me, you know, said Mr. Schwartz as he flashed his card. I don't mind at all, I said. I'm thrilled. I'm glad. Still, I looked around. I felt I was entering a dark conspiracy, and although I knew I wasn't guilty of any crime, I felt the huge power of the entire State Department behind this Carol Reed man. Mr. Schwartz didn't waste any time. Have you seen any Soviet citizens lately? He asked. Yes, I said. There was no point in denying my contacts with filmmakers or film critics of any country. Did you see them professionally? You know, as a photographer? I looked at him. There was a queer smile on his face. It was very clear what he was driving at. Photographs, secret documents, cameras, all the spy stuff. I remembered Five Fingers, which I guess is a film title. No, I said. I saw them on personal matters. I thought that was vague enough. Mr. Schwartz walked along silently for a moment. It was cold. He looked into a coffee shop, but I preferred the cold morning air. Did they ever offer you any money? He asked suddenly. Money? I had better deny it, and fast, I thought. This was a dangerous question. No, I said, I haven't received any money from any Soviet citizen, and you needn't worry about it if that's what you're afraid of. That should do it, I thought. It didn't. I have information that you've received money from Soviet citizens in this country, said Mr. Schwartz. We walked on silently. If he doesn't believe what I say, why does he bother asking me, I thought. It was insulting. What had seemed at first an innocent adventure, a game, suddenly became disgusting. I'd be glad to get some money from somebody, I said. I could use some. The joke didn't come off. Mr. Schwartz was waiting for a direct answer or sudden confession. I had made a mistake, I thought. You should never say that you need money. That may be proof that you accepted money. You're forgetting your movies, I thought. You are avoiding the answer, said Mr. Schwartz. I found myself wondering, is he recording, taping down what I say? But the question is ridiculous, I said. It's my duty to find out the facts, said Mr. Schwartz. But how are you going to do that if you don't believe what I say? It's useless, I said. You're wasting taxpayers' money with useless investigations. Do you pay taxes? The agent asked. I shut up. Hell, I said to myself, he may dig into my taxes. He probably has a book on me, 10 inches thick. So I'll stop there. But yeah, towards the end, he's the agent notices that Makis is carrying a book with a red cover. and acts suspiciously about that, and it turns out it's just a copy of the Red Badge of Courage.
It's awesome. I have 10 more words from Henry Miller.
10, yeah.
Exactly. That sort of encapsulates a little of what we've been talking about today, too. I actually used it as a quote at the beginning of one of my books, Poems for Teeth. And it's from Sexus, but I didn't bother to note that or where it's from in Sexus. So I just never forgot it. It's like you read it in a book and you're like, it's burned forever in your mind. And the sentence is, when our very lives are threatened, we begin to live.
Yep.
It just gives me a lot to think about. It's not as simple as it sounds. It's a good one though.
Mhm.
I totally understand it
Yeah.
because when I clawed my way out of the closet, you know, where I could have died, I was in there for 2.5 days without water or food or accompaniment. um, and I went back to work 2 days later, and I was standing behind the desk at the library, the circulation desk, and there was a lull, but I was on the clock, so I was being paid to stand there, and it felt so ridiculous. Like, I looked around from where I stood, and I just felt like everything was ridiculous. And I remember thinking to myself, unless you are fighting to stay alive, desperately fighting to stay alive, there is no purpose. There's no because I felt suddenly wooden and kind of numb standing there at my job doing
Tammy, do you have that incident written down as a prose narrative? I know that you did a performance about it, which I have not seen, but do you have it written? It would be a really valuable piece of like a short memoir piece.
Yeah,
sorry, I had to shake the nuts.
I mean, I know you wrote something about it because
No,
I've
I'm about to answer. I wrote a one-woman show, and I did a workshop presentation of it in Austin, and then a year later I tweaked it, tightened it up, and with my good friend Ramsey, who did the live score for it, we performed it about 5 or 6 times at a fringe theater festival in a Unitarian church, Unitarian Universalist church that requested that we perform it at their church, and then at a theater. So and I do want to publish the script. I really want to, but I'm, you know, the one place I thought of isn't accepting scripts at this time that specifically publish performance scripts. So I'd need to find a publisher that wants to deal with that genre of that type of work. And I have images. I have performance stills, photos of me performing it, which could be interspersed.
You don't have a video, do you? You don't, do you?
Yeah. A friend of mine, Rick Leal, he worked for a cable access. He did cable TV stuff. He arranged for a 2-camera shoot, and it also, after he edited the footage, he asked me if he might run it during Hispanic Heritage Month, October of many years ago. And I said, yeah, go ahead. And it aired on cable access TV no fewer than like 10 times. And to my knowledge, I'm the only performance artist in Texas who's had their work run on cable access like that. A full one-woman show without commercial break.
But do you have the video? Can we
Oh yeah,
watch it?
I have it on DVD. I've sold copies of it, you know, that I've burned. Yeah, it's like here in the piles of stuff next to the Juliet Torres.
Sell me a copy.
What's that?
I want to see it.
Yeah, I'll give me your address and I'll work on that. Yeah, and my hope is to actually have it published so that people can read it, because it's too exhausting to perform over and over. I think it needs to be published. And we tried to do a Facebook Live performance of it during COVID, back in May of 2020. But internet kept breaking down, and it didn't come across very well. But I was performing it in my closet here at home, and it was really interesting. The attempt was very interesting because I felt like people could resonate with that piece, being in lockdown, being alone, feeling
Yeah.
trapped.
Well, I will pay you a sizable percentage of my life savings for a copy, which these days is like $20.
If I was the type of person that says shut up, I would say shut up. But no,
Say shut up.
please, I'd be honored to share a copy with you.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I always am curious about that. Every time you mention it, I think it sounds amazing. Have you seen it, Jeffrey?
I I think I may have seen some of your performance in your closet of it at some point during COVID. I vaguely remember that's when I first heard about it. Anyway,
Well, that's, yeah, back, like I said, May of 2020 was when we tried to do because that's the anniversary. It happened May 8th through May 10th of 2008. Every, as May starts rolling around, I'm like, is it worth it to roll this out again and do a rendition or an excerpt of it or talk about it? Because it doesn't feel like it's been given its day in the limelight. But I say it that way, meaning I think people could benefit from it because every time I performed it, people have been scared straight about like being more cautious about things like charging your phone and having a hammer and bottled water in your closet. So if you get trapped in there, let's say if you go in there during a tornado emergency, you want to have the right tools around you. And a lot of times we're not prepared. So it's a cautionary piece in a sense. It's a emergency management scenario type piece. So it's instructive. And we made it entertaining, and the
It's
music's
also
great.
existential as hell.
yeah.
At least the
I'd like to
idea is.
touch back to your experience in the library after the fact. It's that realization there did you include that realization into your performance?
No, I didn't.
Because that's important, I feel. It's and that ties in earlier with Richard when you were talking about that piece on anger. I've been thinking a lot about rage.
Mhm.
And of course that ties in with the whole lizard fire thing, but that we have a right to be enraged in today's world. We need to express our rage in today's world. I mean, there's a lot to be enraged about. and that ties in with that existential fighting for survival. So anyway,
Well, you think about or imagine folks in Gaza right now, in the line of fire day and night, and how many of them, individual folks, are really obsessing about armpit stains on their clothing, or if if their hair's not been combed, or um whether the back window's locked, when there's no front door anymore. The front of the house is blown to bits. Do you worry about the back window being latched? Like, you let go of a lot. And when I was trapped in the closet, all I could focus on with pinpoint precision was the hole that I was carving out so I could come out and be free. I wasn't, that was what I was fixated on. And then when I got out, I'm like, okay, now I get to, well, first, everybody who's encircled me when I came out, were just in kind of an anxious, also desperate embrace of me, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, you could have. And then, like, 24 hours later, they're back to their, oh, and did you hear what she said? And oh, I can't believe it. And Tammy, what do you ever have a comb? Do you want to comb your hair? Or I don't know. I can't help you with that. I'm too busy. I can't give you a ride. It just all like we just fell back into place. And that place we fall back into for too many of us, not present company, probably not included. You own up if you want to, but we,
Everybody does.
our default setting is so bland, blasé, scuffed, and just mucked up. Like we have lost vision and lost insight into how to get through the tunnel.
I want to thank you because you just kind of gave me the key to the story I've been trying to figure out.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Can't wait to read it.
So yeah, there's it's all implied. I didn't have to really spell it out so concretely. But yeah, there's storytelling in it, the performance piece. But thank you for asking about it, because it's one of many, many things on my mind. As I try to
always wonder about it when you mention it. And it's come to mind many times when you haven't been around.
Well, if you watch it and then care to help me figure out a home for it, that would be grand.
Where can I send you my address? I'll send it to you in a text.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. So this is the third Saturday of the month, and we've had a wonderful session, I believe. And Jeffrey, thank you for your effort in like tying up a lot of these synchronicities. I really enjoy when that happens somehow by the end of our time together. I'm gonna stop recording, and I appreciate y'all being here. This was very instructive. As always, I learned so much being with you folks. Thank you.